Just make sure that their mic is on.
All right, I got 4:30. We'll go ahead and open the April 9th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Welcome to everyone. Our first order of business is introduction of our new staff.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dalton Castle. I'm the new zoning administrator of the city. I graduated from Michigan State University, and I come from the city of Flint, where I worked on their zoning team, and I'm happy to be a part of the city.
Perfect. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Roaring round of applause. All right, our next order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from our February 12th meeting. Those minutes have been included in our packet. It really didn't look like much when you put it on paper. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
Yes. Packet page 4. Mover and seconder. I would never make a move. I think they're reversed. I think it's Chair Ebert makes the motion and Booker makes the supported motion. I think it's reversed. And the same way with packet page 5. The adjournment.
I have no recollection one way or the other.
No, but I usually don't make a motion, so.
We will verify the recording before the public minutes officially.
Perfect.
I have a couple administrative ones, just spelling of my name. Nothing earth shattering here, but it's spelled right on the top of page 4, and then for the rest of 3 and 4, it's misspelled, but.
Excellent. Any others? Are we comfortable approving the minutes as noted pending review of the transcript?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have support?
Support.
Further discussion on the motion? We doing a roll call vote on meeting minutes, or can we voice vote?
A voice vote would be appropriate.
Perfect. All those in favor of approving the February 12th meeting minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. We have meeting minutes. All right, our next order of business is a public hearing on a request for a variation to the parking requirements for 807 Napier. Go ahead and open that public hearing. Dalton, it sounds like you want to give us a little background on this?
Yep, just to go over the request, the applicant is interested in opening a food and drink establishment business at the subject location. The size of the building is approximately 2,100 square feet, which would require 21 parking spaces to be provided. The applicant would like to leave the site as is, and the maximum number of parking spaces they're able to fit on the site is 11. So they're requesting a reduction of 10 from the required 21. I have provided in my staff report arguments both in favor and against for each of the subject review standards. I would advise the commission to discuss each of the standards of review and make the decision based off those. Additionally, I would like to recommend that in the event you are interested in moving to approve, the condition that the approval be based on the occupancy as presented with 18 seats provided. This is because the variance would run with the land. So future tenants or other food and drink establishment businesses could operate at the subject location. They could alter the floor plan such that it provides a larger number of seats, which would increase the potential amount of parking. That it wouldn't increase the requirement, though it is likely to have a increase in the usage and length of duration of parking spots being taken up on the site. So just to looking forward in the future, in the event you would like to approve the variance, kind of working around that possibility.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions on Dalton's presentation there? Perfect. Is the applicant here or someone representing the applicant here who'd like to speak to this? Yes, if you could come to the podium and tell us what you would like us to consider, please.
Hi, my name is Pedro Villasenor. I'm owner of No LaRue Cajun Eatery, establishment here in St. Joe. I am requesting a variance for the parking ordinance at 807 Napier, the former Vans Pharmacy on Napier Avenue. It is a 2,100 square foot building and it has very limited parking or has limited parking. We are proposing using the space for the restaurant as our new location. We are mostly a casual takeout restaurant, relying heavily on delivery, so DoorDash and Uber Eats. I would say our business is 50-50 walk-in takeout as well. So between the delivery and the takeout, our dining, I would say, is closer to 30-35% of our total business. We are currently in a space on Niles Avenue. It's a small plaza with two other tenants, so there's 3 of us. There's currently 13 spaces in that plaza, and we haven't felt that the amount of parking that we have currently is a major constraint to our business. We also run food trucks and catering, which also supplement and help kind of support the business. And so I think that the 11 spaces there would still kind of be pretty equivalent to what the parking that we have now currently. We're not asking to do anything to the building or remove anything or anything. We're just asking for permission to use the building as is. Yeah.
Excellent. How many seats do you have in your current location for in-person dining?
Right now we have 24.
Okay.
So it's 4 booths of 4, and then 3 tables of 4.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Sure. I was wondering if you researched any shared parking propositions in the
I
area
haven't
there?
personally, so this isn't my property. There is, the property owners had intentionally, their interest was to also use it as a restaurant. They've come up against the same issue, and they've reached out to the folks adjacent to the property, which is I don't know if it's a pawn shop or the Napier Gold and Coin. And my understanding was that they weren't very open to considering that as a shared space. My assumption would be that they didn't take the right approach. They just kind of called and said, "Hey, can we borrow your space?" And they said, "There's no need for us. We don't need to rent it or anything like that." I think given some time, a different approach that might be an option. Yeah. But as of now, my understanding is that it's a no.
Okay, and then the second question, where will the employees park? You know, and we'll get it probably into that a little bit, but where would the employees park versus the?
So on the next street, north of Napier, I'm not sure exactly what the name of the street is. Right along
Kingsley.
that street, there's, I believe, over a dozen, public parking spaces. That's just north of the ice rink. And so we had looked at that as a possibility. It's a short walk to the restaurant, but our intent was to use that public parking as employee parking.
And then, third, you mentioned something about 50/50 was your business, perhaps, dine-in versus takeout, or what, or was that something else? Was
50/50
that the
is
30,
dine-in.
35 something?
That's correct. 50/50 dine-in takeout, but then with the delivery, it kind of pushes the dining closer to 35% of our total
So
sales.
lower than 50,
Lower than 50, yes.
yeah. Okay, because I was just wondering about rebalancing your, your business model from dine-in and, versus takeout.
And we don't have, it's not a full service restaurant, it's kind of counter service.
Yeah.
We don't have any, again, any table service. It's not a 4-course service that we're offering. It's all disposable stuff, so, and it's really quick serve, so people kind of are in and out, I would say 20 to 30 minutes at the max.
And what was your rationale then for the seating of the 18 people?
So that, I'll discuss that. The 18 is based on the proposal of the previous project. I would request it would be closer to 24 seats available. Whether they're all taken up at the same time, it's rarely that all 24 seats are taken, but I would at least prefer to have 24 available, just for proper spacing. If somebody comes in, there's a couple and they take up a table of 4, that would still eliminate 2 other seats that aren't available. If there's only 18, that really limits the amount of seating.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
And how many employees do you anticipate working at this new restaurant?
Right now, we have 4 in our Niles location and myself, so there's 5 of us. Typically, there's 2 to 3 on staff. We do a lot of our larger production, I would say, or we have a commissary kitchen in Waterville that we use to kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting for the food trucks and just for the restaurant itself. So typically there's somebody at the counter and somebody kind of what we call the cook line, putting the food together, and maybe an additional person on a busier day where we're doing, we do shrimp boils on Saturdays. So it's just an extra station that we have to man. So 4 at the very maximum, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to the employees parking, you also have the food trucks. Would they be parked on the site as well?
So right now we run those out of Waterville. We do those out of Waterville. I would imagine that maybe occasionally we would need to park one just for an event that's maybe closer to town or just the need to have to do it there, yeah. Let me just add, we will need to use some of the space for the dumpster enclosure, and that sits pretty far back enough where you can park a vehicle in front of it, but I can't use it or probably 2, but I can't use it as an actual parking space because of that. But there is additional space there available. Typically the garbage gets picked up really early in the morning, but still, I wouldn't be able to use it, I don't think, as official parking. One thing we can also do is we can designate a couple of spots as like 15-minute parking for like the takeout. I know that would help kind of speed up some of the process of. of those just coming in. Or it would be available if all the other spots are taken, that they'd still be only 15-minute parking for a couple spots.
Kind of like the trucks, what about delivery trucks?
But that's third-party delivery, so DoorDash and Grubhub would use those 15-minute spots, is kind of my thinking.
What about your food delivery, Cisco or whatever, or whoever, larger trucks and
Yeah, that's a good question. Those typically, they arrive usually at 6, 7, like way before we open, or any customers would be available. So the thought was that adjacent to the property, there's an alleyway, like right alongside of it. And it's an alleyway, it's not really a through street. So my thought would be that they would just park there while unloading and then kind of move on.
Yeah, so on your plan, you have a loading space. Why do you have a loading space on the private property?
There's gotta be some sort of space, just to get to the back door. And I would imagine for fire safety as well, or for evacuation, to be able to come out the door and then not have any obstruction. I just designed it that way. I thought maybe two for the food truck, or for us just unloading. Sometimes I've got to run out and get like a case of tomatoes or lettuce or something, and I'd hate to not have a spot where I can just back in, unload, and then pull out and park somewhere else.
I've got a question. Do you anticipate, it sounds like your business is going from kind of a location of the same, close to the same size,
Yes.
maybe even smaller? Is this place smaller?
1,800 square feet is where we're at now, and this would be
Okay.
21, so it'd just be a little bit
A little bit
bigger.
bigger. So are you anticipating business growth?
I would hope. We've done
Right.
much more volume out of the location we're at now in the past.
Mhm.
I think it's just economic conditions, not necessarily anything we're doing. But I would think, yeah, that we would hopefully, based on just visibility, that's kind of, I think that's what we're looking to gain. Well, two things. One is I'm leasing where I'm at currently, so there's never a guarantee that space is going to be available forever. And then two, it kind of, or two, where it sits a little further back on the road. And this would just give us a much more visibility on a busier intersection.
Other questions for the applicant?
Just to clarify, the kitchen that's going to be there is going to support that location and is not going to support the food trucks?
It could potentially, like, right, what we did this year, we did close Water of Elite for the winter. So it did support some events during the winter, but the volume is much lower than it is in the summertime.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, thank you, sir. You can
thank
take a
you.
seat. We're gonna open it up for public comment.
Thanks for your consideration.
You betcha. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this proposal? Please come forward and tell us who you are and what you would like us to consider.
My name's Adam Wagner. My parents own the property at where Napier Gold is located, next door to the property. And they submitted the letter to you guys for consideration about that. We had, I don't know, fairly often we had, one of the arguments is that Vans operated as a retail location in there, and we consistently had issues with their delivery trucks, vans, semis using our parking lot as an easy throughfare because they didn't want to block the alleyway or their parking spots there. It was small, independent retail pharmacy that probably had more consistent business throughout the day. Less lunch, dinner surges where more parking would be needed. And consistently had, like I said, delivery vehicles or customers using our parking lots, and that's with probably a lower rate of customers at certain times than more consistent throughout the day than, say, your lunchtime crowd or dinner time crowd that would come to a restaurant. So we are opposed to it because just the issues we had. And in the back of our parking lot and around the side where those commercial vehicles transited, there's significant wear and tear to our blacktop, which we've just gotten quotes to replace. And we don't transit that. Our customers don't typically transit that. That's typically from that commercial vehicle traffic. Even the city's trash truck would come into our driveway to gather their trash can that was at the back of their building because it was easier to transit through there as opposed to going through the alleyway to get it. So for vans, it seems that they need one parking spot for a non-durable good retail establishment for every 350 square feet, which they seem to accomplish. They're met that standard, but I'm assuming the city's ordinance for a restaurant and drink establishment has that higher parking capacity simply because of the surges in lunchtime, dinner time crowds. So we would be opposed to the variance just because undue parking or undue issues with people pulling through our lot, making it harder for us or our customers to come in and out of our facility, our business, for them to access our business. That's essentially what I have to say there. So
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question. I see on the north side of your building in the back area where you're talking about, there's a row of pipe bollards, if you will, across there. Are those yours or are those on the
yes,
adjacent
those are
property?
yours. We consistently had issues with drive-through traffic, employees, or people using that. And again, we're worried about liability risk from people that come on our property and just looking for fall for to use their establishments, which has more traffic than ours, So for delivery, that's like he stated, you'd have to block the alleyway in order. Well, there's also two residences that the only way they can access their parking is right on that alleyway. So there's potential problems for the neighbors to access their property too. And like I said, our parking lot was right next to the front door, so there was consistently vans or trucks or semis that would pull up there, drop off what they needed to, and then pull in off of Napier and exit off of Niles Avenue through our parking lot, which we'd ask them to not do or to ask the drivers not to, but they typically had different drivers and the message never got communicated. So we just had problems with it, and we'd like our property for our use and for our customers' use. So we are, again, opposed to something that we feel with surges in traffic at certain times will make it harder for that to happen. So,
All right, thank you.
all right.
So one more question. So again, the same question actually, asked of the applicant. What about the shared parking, any kind of shared parking opportunity? Would you be open to something like that?
I guess we don't really see it as a benefit to us, I
No,
mean,
but in terms of a lease agreement or a monetary benefit?
well, but that also locks us into a contract if we want to do something else or, it's not really something that we're interested in doing.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Anyone else care to comment on the application?
Good afternoon, good evening. Michael Eisenhart. I'm the son-in-law of Bob and Linda Wagner, who own the Napier Gold, and love the shrimp boil, by the way. Fantastic. Really great food. Just to, Adam has all the data, if you will, but I hear everything as well. And I just wanted to affirm, what he's telling you is, and I hear it from my wife, who hears it from her parents. And it has been a burden to them over the years, even with vans. And I know you did some, yes, this is an argument for and an argument against all the points of light that you gave these guys to take a look at. And I think there was something in there about, having the vans was similar to the restaurant, which I can't make that leap, but, obviously you guys have to affirm that, yes, there wouldn't be a burden with putting a restaurant there versus a Vans Pharmacy that has a couple customers here and there versus, not just simply 18 seats, but maybe 24 seats now and whatnot. My in-laws they're great people, like to work with people. Deathly afraid of, they don't want the liability of shared parking. Just like the city's not going to pick up the liability if somebody slips and falls on Napier Gold's property because we have some sort of shared property and people are walking and parking and stuff on the weekends and so on and so forth. So I think, from the standpoint of having to put up signs, have to monitor the property, having to maybe hire a tow truck company if somebody wants to park there and whatnot. I think having to do that it's a little bit too much for the type of business that they have. And in my mind, it's a continued burden putting that type of a facility next to them with potentially more traffic than what was with Vans when they had issues as well. Now, they never really called the police much. They would walk over to Vans and they would have a conversation with them, and then the customer would come back and move the car and do that, so on and so forth. But can you imagine doing that 3 or 4 times a day? It's not much fun. So anyhow, just wanted to let you know that that's what I have seen and heard as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Discussion of the board?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for staff. How real would the increased liability or the liability be that they're speaking of? I mean, other than insurance cost, insurance covering slip and fall and so forth. I mean, can that be quantified at all or directionally qualified in some way?
I would say that it's difficult to quantify and slightly outside of the scope of concern. I mean, it would certainly be, you would consider it burdensome if you believe it to be a concern that overflow traffic will be going into the site, whether or not it's a concern regarding liability and not as opposed to just being burdensome and them taking up their parking spaces, taking away from potential customers that could be coming to their site.
Okay. I'm just responding to the letter, and the concerns. The second question for staff I have is related to the mercantile use becoming a business use. And that's on packet page 28, where it's being described in other departments' comments, and the building department is talking about, square area and so forth. And I'm not as familiar with the Michigan Building Code. So I don't know if that can be explained to us a little more clearly as far as the 5 occupants in the kitchen versus the 18 occupants in the eating area. And if it's about half, each is half of the building, I was wondering what significance that had on zoning, because zoning, as it's stated, is based on square footage. So square footage isn't gonna change. It's over 2,100
So this-
square feet.
So these comments from building would not impact necessarily the zoning review. It's more so in regards to as I had stated earlier, if you were to rework the floor plan, the requirements are 200 square feet for a kitchen area per person, and then 150 square feet per person in the business area. So hypothetically, if you were to have a new tenant move in, rework the floor plan, decrease the size of the kitchen, you would theoretically increase the occupancy of the building and increase the number of seating. So that's kind of why this point was brought up in the staff report, as it lends to that possibility.
So how can you justify or rationalize the conditional statement of a maximum of 18 seats for dine-in patrons? Where's that come from, other than what was mentioned? That was a previous, I don't know, previous occupancy.
Yes, so the applicant's intent was to have it be a more takeout-based restaurant. So it would not be appropriate to condition the approval to be just for the applicant's restaurant. So it's finding a condition of approval that would be appropriate based on ordinance standards.
Right.
That we could tie that to, that would lean it more towards the type of business and with the way that the applicant's business is run.
So that goes from mercantile to business use.
The exact specifics of that, I would defer to the building department if they want to speak.
Yes, when a restaurant is under 49 people or under, it's considered business.
Okay. Because in my mind, I'm just trying to weigh out a little bit of a justification in terms of the business model of takeout versus in-house dining. But in a sense, if the ordinance, I mean, not if, the ordinance says it's based on square footage because it goes with the property, not the business that is in there at that time, assures that, you know, there's ample parking for any business that would move in there at any time, regardless of how many people are dining in or dining out. Okay, so I guess you've answered my question there. Okay, thanks.
Other thoughts?
Just have a question about, maybe it's the mechanics of the for and against. But for example, paragraph C, the opposition, you know, applicant could reasonably obtain a shared parking agreement. I mean, I don't know how we can say that. And also I didn't see in the approval or disapproval any language that would make that conditional, and how would that carry forward even if it were?
So that was presented not as necessarily a statement of fact, as it was a theoretical argument that could be made in opposition of that standard. I cannot speak necessarily to what neighboring businesses uses would say and whether or not they would be willing to agree to a shared parking agreement. But that is a theoretical alternative avenue that the applicant could have taken. And so the kind of goal with that was to bring it up as a discussion point, which you had asked the applicant about that possibility if they had pursued it at all. So the intention was more so to bring that up as a potential argument than to necessarily as a statement of fact that this is a point in opposition.
All right, so I guess something similar in paragraph E, and the opposition says parking requirement could be theoretically reworked. Can we do that?
So an ordinance amendment would be possible. It would be a different process. With a variance, In certain situations, it may be seen as more realistic if it's more of an ordinance issue as opposed to a standard that is kind of a situation that's unique to the property versus whether or not it's just the ordinance standard not working for the city. Does that make sense?
Not to me, but that's because I'm new.
Yeah, I think the point of that is that if it's something that reoccurs very often and it's a common situation, the better alternative to a variance may be amending the ordinance to address it.
Understood. Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
So I learned something from a previous case when Sean brought up the zoning districts. And this is one of those patchwork quilts where it is on a border of 3 zoning districts. You have the ice rink, which is open space on our considered open space on our map. You have C for commercial business, which is right there with the gold shop and the previous Vans building. And then you have residential R1A just to the north. And there's a barrier there, a green barrier. So when we talk about parking, which has been a big topic lately, I just get a little concerned that the statement of employees parking in the residential area, that next street is residential. And it is free parking, but some people like to park in front of their houses too. There was a lot of comment about that in the past. So I think that's one precautionary thing to consider. Then the second thing is in the letter, talks about, impeding delivery vehicles and so forth and so on. In the commercial district, speaking of districts, in the loading and unloading section 18.3.4, commercial properties abutting alleys, they are permitted, to use the alley for loading and unloading. Okay, in that section, it states that commercial zones are allowed to. That's why I was asking the applicant why he had a loading area when you don't need a loading area. If that's considered an alley, deliveries are permissible in a commercial zone, similar to downtown. So I think we could strike off the loading concern off the list. And it becomes one more of just blatantly, where are people going to park? But that was a concern because of the weight of the vehicles and, breaking up the asphalt, right? So I don't know why the trucks would be unloading in somebody else's parking lot when it's permissible to be, and that's a one-way alley, why they can't just unload right there. Or why they wouldn't have been unloading right there. And that could continue with the new business.
But if they unload it in the alley, wouldn't that block the exit to the alley?
Sure, but we're going by the ordinance.
Same would be true downtown.
Yeah.
Except that in this case, if it is blocking the alley, doesn't that block access to the parking that we're talking about?
It could.
So
If Gordon's Foods come in at 7,
Yeah.
and no customers are there, I guess it isn't any different than any place else.
I would question whether or not you can routinely get your deliveries before 7 o'clock on everything. I think that's a pipe dream.
Yeah,
So-
maybe.
So this could be, just before lunch, the
Right.
truck could pull.
But could be,
But
but
it's still
again, it's
permissible to
permissible.
block the alley.
Right, it's
You
still
know, like
permissible
that's-
according to the ordinance.
But what I worry about the most is the turnover in the parking spaces, the churn, because it's going to be a delivery-based business or most of it. And I think you're going to get a lot of traffic here that you didn't get with the pharmacy, right? You're going to have different cars pulling in, different cars pulling out constantly, right? If the business is successful. I worry about that. It is a busy corner.
I have a question for staff about the 18. Where did you come up with that number?
That was simply based on the applicant's request. That number could be theoretically adjusted. But yeah, it was entirely based on the applicant's proposal and the floor plan that was provided.
Okay, I thought I heard 24 as well, but is that your current?
Yeah, 24 when the applicant had done their presentation. Requested that addition be upped to 20.
Oh, okay.
The plan that was submitted at 18 seats.
And that still requires 11. Or 21 spots.
Well, because
The size of
it's
the
based
building.
on, the ordinance is based on
On square
square
footage.
area.
Yes, the
Square
square footage of the
So-
building would not be changed in either case, so the 21 parking space requirement would remain the same regardless of the floor plan setup. The floor plan setup is more so in regards to the occupancy of the building.
So am I correct in saying no matter what business went into this space, they would be required to have 21,
If it was a food and drink establishment.
just food and drink? Okay.
Yeah, I even looked up the takeout classification for a drive-through, looking at Neon,
Yeah.
and but that's also on table 18-1, just before the food and drink one. Page 2838.70. But that says 5 vehicle stacking on private property. So 5 times 20, let's just say 20 feet, because the 20-foot length is the parking space length specified in the ordinance. Can be 18 as well, but anyway, if it's 100 feet from the front, from the front setback line, or the property line, that puts it out in the between the dumpster and the building. So you couldn't.
That's for takeout, the takeout window.
Right, but I'm just saying, if they didn't do a food and drink, but they did more of a drive-through type of business, they'd have to, it would be out in the parking lot. The window would be out in the parking lot to get those cars lined up on the private.
They're not asking.
No, I know, but I was trying to be creative about what could happen.
Yeah, sorry, further point of clarification at the end of for drive-through establishments, it does describe the stacking requirements, which is quite likely, but at the very end, it does state, in addition, parking for the principal use is required. So if it was a drive-through food and drink establishment, the normal amount of parking would be required in addition to the stacking lane.
Oh,
How does Neon Grill do it?
yeah, how would Neon Grill do it, or is that?
That's not really for today's
Okay,
discussion.
fair enough. All right, fair.
Non-conforming. Just trying to grab.
Yeah, I really have no issue with reducing the parking other than the neighbors' concerns.
Yeah.
As far as impact to the rest of the neighborhood, there's on-street parking across the street in front of the quilting place. There's on-street parking on the corner around the street from the quilting place. As the applicant pointed out, there's parking down
The dog park.
at the dog park. There's a hugely underutilized parking lot at the ice rink.
Yeah, yeah.
So you look at that area globally, I think there's probably, and then you look at where his establishment is now. I personally have not seen that parking lot
Ever full.
Full.
ever full.
Yeah.
And you know, there's parking on the side street there as well. So just the eye test from his current operation leads me to believe that this may well be enough parking on the property regardless of these other opportunities that are right there in the neighborhood. That being said, that doesn't address,
Right.
you know, real concerns from the neighbor. Now granted, whatever goes in here, I mean, even with Van's little bit of traffic that they had, it created problems. Is there a way to put conditions to this of if we're gonna allow this, perhaps we require a permanent barrier so that those trucks can't go from this property onto the adjacent property? Is that gonna stop somebody from wanting to park on their property and walk in the front door? That's a little harder to manage.
But the burden could be on,
But-
sorry. go ahead.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. Shift
On the-
some of that burden to the applicant to limit the amount of intrusion onto the neighbor's property. Now, regardless of whatever goes in there, can we limit everything? Can we make it a perfect world? That I don't know.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's no different than the retaining wall that's on the opposite side, on the east side where the rink is and the alley. There's a retaining wall and fence there, right? And then there's a, as I said, there was a privacy kind of buffer zone, green zone on the north side to the residential area. Then you have I noticed the posts are on the west side, as you state. So would there be a condition that we could make with some kind of barrier or something to signify that, you know, you can't go over to the neighbors and park?
And how is that durable after, you know, properties change hands and like to make that burden on the owner of,
Right.
you know,
But that
This
could be a
property.
conditional,
Condition of it being-
conditional
and that
add to the situation. The other thing is, the reason I was asking about occupancy, is there any way we can put a condition on the occupancy so 18 doesn't become 24, which becomes 35 and so on and so on with this particular business? Or does the condition, would the condition have to go with the property no matter who?
Yeah, so the variance runs with the land.
Yes.
So
Right.
once it's approved, it stays with the land. It does not look to see who
Right.
the tenant is, so it would apply to any future.
But does the
tenant.
condition go with it?
The condition would still apply, yes.
So we could be talking about two conditions,
Mm-hmm.
one structural and one inherent in the business.
And for me, I'm not that passionate on the 18 limitation.
Okay.
it's not big enough to hold a lot more.
Right, and as he pointed out, how often are all those seats filled? Where you, like he said, you may get a couple that comes in, takes the four top. A single over on the side, a single may come in and take a four top. So to have the additional ability for a couple of more tables, I don't know that it drives your quote unquote, how many people are actually in the room. And again, with the amount of parking in the neighborhood, if we can address the imposition on the neighbors,
Yeah.
Hardest
am
part's
I
gonna
that
be your-
passionate about how many seats are in the place?
Yeah. And I mean, we've had a lot of discussions on housing and parking and parking is one of those funny subjects here as of recent, but parking is one of the least concerns in the development of a community, actually. Parking quotas, parking lot or parking space quotas.
I think to answer, I think, kind of asked about having some sort of barrier, I think you could put that on as a condition, that you could only put conditions on the applicant's property. So
Right.
certainly make your goal, you put up their own signage or they bollards up, but you could require on the applicant's property as a condition that they have some fencing or some type of separation that prohibits kind of the driving over the other
Right.
lot. It makes sense with this request because we know that it doesn't meet all the parking that's required, so that's a way of limiting and making sure it's staying either on their property or it flows into public parking. I don't know if it's just in the back part where that was an issue. Certainly the loading and unloading would be in the alley. I don't know why Dan's might have done it in the front. That's what it sounded like was a bigger problem, but encouraging any kind of deliveries in the alley is allowed by the ordinance would be, part of trying to alleviate some of that concern with deliveries. Is it just the back part of the property where the driving would occur back and forth, other than the delivery trucks cutting through in the front?
Can we ask if the applicant has any ideas on what could be done to prohibit access? See if they have any thoughts on what they could do, and then we could word the ordinance.
We could, other than you're asking him to react on a spur of a moment.
Well,
Mhm.
sure.
I'm prepared. Yeah, he's doing it.
Yeah, so this city sidewalk looks like it might, I don't know where the property line is there. Because the 84 feet, 8 inches begins at the building here, but the sidewalk is further south. So if that's the route that people are cutting through, then we might, the condition could include something, but that, again, we don't know where the property line is, so some of it might end up on the easement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the front part's going to be difficult. The rear part behind the building would be, I think you do that with fencing, the front part probably not.
Right, but
Correct. Looking at the aerial on packet page 24. I agree with council that addressing, I don't think we have any allowable barrier that we could put on the applicant's property that does the job. Like I say, it's a little bit hard to make it a perfect world and prevent people. I mean, it's the shortest path is to park at Napier Gold right there and walk in the front door. It's a little bit tough if people are inclined to park on somebody else, infringe on somebody else's parking and walk into the other applicant or the applicant's front door. That's a little bit tough for us to manage.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people do it. Yes, sir.
Are requiring to put a proper signage, specific signs that says it's absolutely no parking here, park on the other side, like, do not park on this side, no deliveries, no parking this side of the building.
Certainly an opportunity for that, but you want to be careful with the dance against our sign ordinance. I like the thought though.
But that is an opportunity there.
But again, how do you make, it's very,
So- So the posts, right, so just to be clear, are the posts on your property, the adjacent property, or are the posts on the applicant's property? So are we saying that the applicant would have to put his own barrier on his own property? That would be the condition for the back, not rely on the posts that are already there.
Correct. We don't want to burden the neighboring
Correct.
property with having to do something because
Yeah.
of what moved in next door.
Yeah. Well, I like the sign idea in the front, and you just have to go to the planning commission
Well, in 5 years from
for
now,
that.
you know, the signs are, how do you, again, make that durable? How do you make sure that that responsibility of reducing, the neighbor's burden is kept?
Yeah.
That's
Do you
a
have
little harder
do you
to,
have
I mean,
any
a
advice
fence
on that?
is,
That a sign goes with the property?
So if that were to be a condition, then it would be a requirement that for as long as that location is operating as a food and drink establishment, then that sign would be required in order to be able to meet the parking requirements and therefore operate.
and I'm sure being in good repair is part of the requirement of our signage ordinance, right? So.
Right, and size. So when the property turns over to another establishment of any type, what happens with that sign? It becomes nullified and there's a reapplication, or?
So if it's so certain signs, I guess, are you referring to like if the sign were to be removed and then put back up? Because certain signs do not require a permit. If it's a small enough on-site directional sign, it could be allowed without a requirement of a permit. It would really come down to some specifics there of what their design is.
Yeah, but someone buys the property in status quo, right?
Mhm.
And then,
If it's
People
written in the
start-
variance, it will follow the property.
Right.
Yeah, if they were to come in to City Hall, be like, and for example, a new restaurant is moving in, they're asking what approvals are needed on our end. We would see the note of the condition of approval.
okay,
And I think if you're doing that, it would be a little bit general because standards can change over
Yeah.
time. And I think it's more of just making sure that there's adequate signage indicating where parking is for this business.
Right, I even envision the applicant could mount signs on the west wall of his
Yeah,
building
right.
stating this is parking for Napier Gold only and not
right.
the restaurant.
That's why you're on the planning board. Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Further thoughts?
I'm a little curious as to why, and I think you brought this up, Steve, why deliveries weren't using the alleyway in the past, and, how realistic is it that they're gonna comply with using the alley? Because we know, or,
Yeah, well,
that
maybe
it's
it's
allowed, but
maybe it's
like you said,
another
different
sign.
drivers all the time.
maybe it's another sign,
Well, with a
deliveries
phys-
in the
With a
alley.
physical barrier there, where else are you going to deliver?
That helps, yeah.
Right,
I mean, I fully envision that truck pulling down the alley
right.
and backing into the no parking loading zone that is shown on the drawing, because that driver wants to walk the shortest distance he can. So he's gonna put his tailgate right by that door and offload and into the cooler.
And even if it is a short semi, it's in the alley and he might try to back in.
Or even if it's the food truck, I fully envision the food truck pulling in and backing up to that door, because I'm sure staff doesn't want to carry any further than they have to. And with a physical barrier across the back there preventing traffic from entering the neighbor's property.
Yeah, I think it has to be a physical barrier that a Jeep can't just climb over, maybe we specify a height, since we're good at that. Dimensional variances.
I can speak to food deliveries, through the school system. I mean, we feed at each location, several hundred kids every day. And we have deliveries that have to occur during a certain time period, can't be during times when the area has heavy traffic. And specific locations as well. And when delivery people don't adhere to those, we call, we complain, and it gets remedied. So it is not an impossible task to train your delivery people to drop off where they're supposed to, when they're supposed to.
Not at 8:30 when all the moms are in the circle.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. When the traffic goes all the way out into the street, yeah.
So how high is the retaining wall? Or the, how high would the barrier, would we recommend a barrier to be?
I'm not sure I'm comfortable recommending anything specific.
Okay.
I think it needs to be durable and robust enough that it's clearly not something you're driving through. And I think it needs to be continuous enough that it prevents people from parking in the neighbor's parking lot and walking through it
Right,
or over it.
they'd have to hurdle, or they'd have to pole vault over.
Right, so envision a guardrail. You know, a highway guardrail you can easily step over. Perhaps that's not the best option.
Right.
Large scale planters that are continuous, that are of such a width that you can still have a parking spot, but people are not inclined to walk over.
Yeah.
I'm not here to design it. I'm here to
Yeah.
put a condition on that perhaps it's robust enough to meet the need.
So-
And let some creativity take place as to what that is.
So the conditions, the adjectives we would use is continuous and not, continuous, and you can't walk over it.
Would impede
Yeah.
vehicle and pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
Someone want to run through the findings? And I think we can run through the
We can-
findings and we can offer our individual discussion as we go. In the past, we've kind of run through the findings and then had discussion
Right.
as a whole. It may work out better if we have discussion on individual findings as we work through them.
I mean, we can read what we have here in our packet, I suppose.
That's a
and
great
then-
starting point.
Right? Because this is a different format than what we're
Right,
accustomed
than what
to.
we're used to. Greatly appreciated, by the way.
Yeah, we like to be spoon-fed. Okay. How about if I take a stab at it?
Go right ahead.
This will be my
Go
first
right
time
ahead.
doing this because I can read it. Okay, a variance would not be detrimental to adjacent property and surrounding neighborhood. The site as it exists had previously operated for many years with the existing parking set up under a different use. The applicant has stated that the proposed restaurant is primarily takeout, though seating is provided for a dine-in experience. Maneuvering of the site and the overall traffic generation is expected to be similar to that which has previously existed, thus causing no detriment to adjacent property and the surrounding neighborhood. Any comment?
And I believe if we are specific about what needs to happen, we can keep it from being detrimental to the adjacent property.
Yes, and I
Limited.
a couple of points that, just from the operation at its current location and the eye test of what seems to be happening there, I think allowing this off of what I've seen there is appropriate. And secondly, having a vacant building there could potentially be more detrimental to adjacent properties than having an occupied space.
Okay. Standard B, the variance would not impair the intent and purpose of this ordinance. I'm gonna skip the italicized and go right to, section 18.1 considers, excessive parking to be inefficient. The applicant's proposed use would operate as primarily a takeout restaurant with a higher rate of traffic turnover than expected from a primary dine-in, primarily a dine-in establishment, reducing the need of parking from the minimum requirement. The applicant has expressed commitment to the maintenance of the property, including proposed parking areas in line with the intent of section 18.2.1. Any comment about
I
it
might also
impairing the
add
We're
that
only
ordinance?
reading
there's on-site,
in favor.
on street parking, across the street. There's, I don't know, 3 or 4 spots, 5 spots there in front of what used to be Schneck's.
Any other comment? Okay.
As we're doing the new process, I think it's helpful if everybody at least weighs in on those standards, and if you disagree, that's fine to say you agree, you can add or just simply state. But I understand what your position is on those standards.
Right. On 3.
From my point of view, with all due respect, it's like he's requesting a different classification for his new style of restaurant. So, and someone mentioned before, changing the regulation. And I think that is really ultimately would be a better choice. The requirement is 21. He's woefully short of that. And that's a concern for me, as well as the turnover in the spaces. So.
Okay.
I'm in agreement.
With him?
No,
Oh,
with the way you
okay.
proposed it.
Guess I have a question about Chris's comment. What is, that's a pretty big hurdle probably to change the ordinance, but to create a new standard. But,
The city's working on it.
okay.
Did we get a contract to do so yet? To, no, but to revamp or look over the ordinances?
There is currently no contract in place to
Oh.
begin a
Right.
drafting of a new
What,
ordinance.
yeah, what is the status of that then? Sorry, you're smiling.
There has been discussion, though no plans are currently in
Okay.
place.
It
So,
was delayed due to the transition
Yeah.
staffing. We intended, there was a budget set aside for this
yeah,
fiscal year.
Yeah.
But when Kristen resigned in December, she didn't have anything prepared ahead of time for the RFP. That's the next step, is
Oh, okay.
preparing that. So until we had Dolphin on, we weren't fully staffed and ready, and he's doing a great job getting his feet under him. That will be one of his next,
okay,
that's big projects, but that would be for the next fiscal year.
yeah, so Kirk, there's,
But it is hopefully moving forward now.
right, because we had that discussion a couple months ago as well. Okay. So there's your answer.
Well, yeah, without kicking it down the road, I would say I agree with the in favor analysis that it's trying to balance public and private needs for off-street parking, so.
Okay, Jennifer?
The only concern I have is that there just doesn't seem to be a plan for any growth. There's no room. So if this business is all of a sudden taking off and we've got cars coming and going, that would be the concern. And we're going from where we currently have 24 seats down to 18. So he's actually reducing the number of in-restaurant people that are going to come in and actually sit in the restaurant. He's reducing from where he is now. So my concern is, I think all of these things would work, and I think the conditional additions to the variance would work. I just would be concerned that if this business grows more, we're going to be dealing with more traffic and more issues. So, I mean, that's it. That's what keeps running through my head is where's their plan for growth?
Okay.
Everything else I'm following and I hear what we're saying and how we're doing it, but that's the only thing that runs through my head where I'm like, that's the one thing that I think,
Okay. All right, standard C, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions apply to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zoning district and vicinity. Such circumstances shall create a practical difficulty because of unique circumstances or physical conditions such as narrowness, shallowness, exceptional shape or topography and property involved, or to the intended use of the property. So the size and shape of the site would make it infeasible to install additional parking on the existing site. The applicant's options in terms of meeting the parking standards would be to obtain a shared parking agreement with an adjacent property owner to permit overflow parking, or to acquire additional land to be converted into parking, which are contingent on the consent of the adjacent property owners and may be costly, which could be considered a practical difficulty. Additionally, the restaurant primarily serving takeout orders may make the ordinance's parking requirement more of a practical difficulty than a necessity to meet the parking demand when compared to other food and drink establishments.
I concur.
I do as well.
Yeah.
It's a unique property.
The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zoning district and in the vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not of itself be deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. The food and drink establishment use is permitted in C zoning district, though is essentially unpermitted on the subject property due to the difficulty in meeting parking requirements barring a shared parking agreement.
Agreed.
I don't agree with the last statement about requiring a parking, shared parking agreement, but in general, I agree that it would be necessary for preservation and enjoyment of similar properties.
Yeah, we had a resistance to the west side, but what you're saying, in terms of the property owner agreeing to some kind of parking.
Yeah, I just don't like that it was
Compromise.
that specific
Oh, okay.
condition.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to require that. We
Right.
can't. So, but in general, whether or not in favor of the variance based on paragraph D, yes.
If I can jump in just a minute on the shared parking arrangement, because that is an option that's available to property owners to meet their parking requirements. That's something that's looked at.
Yeah.
As an alternative to getting a variance. And I think it was pretty clear here today that that's not going to happen at this point in time with the adjacent property owners. So I think that's,
Right.
Part of what you've already heard and discussed, but that's why that's in there.
Sure.
Because that is a potential alternative. So-
But also because of the three zones coming together, in the ordinance, the agreement is supposed to be within the same zone. So there can't be really an agreement on the OS side, right? In the rink, because that's a different zone, and there can't be an agreement on the residential side. There can only be an agreement on the commercial side without a variance.
Right, and there.
Right.
There cannot.
On the south side, that leaves the south side.
But we can never make that a condition. We can only use it as a criteria to approve or disapprove,
Evaluate.
right?
Correct.
And I think that option was vetted out here, so I think that's very helpful to understand whether that, again, looking at practical difficulty. Maybe somebody have one of those to enforce that.
Okay, standard E. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or of the intended use of said property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for the condition or situation. So the subject property is particularly narrow when compared to others in the C zone district, making it generally difficult to provide additional parking. The proposed restaurant being primarily takeout while still providing dine-in seating is generally difficult to differentiate within the ordinance.
Agree.
I concur.
Okay. The standard F, the condition or situation for which the variance is sought shall not be the result of actions of the property owner. Okay, so the owner cannot be reasonably held liable for the size and shape of their lot. They have worked to establish a parking design which maximizes the space available to them to allow the adequate parking. Yeah.
I agree.
Yes, and based on the location, I think there's sufficient public parking in and around the area.
Standard G, strict.
Just a question though about that before we go on. The result of actions of the property owner by making it a restaurant, is that the actions of the property owner?
Yes, but it's
Change.
allowable, it's an allowable use in the district.
Yeah, it's in line with the city vision and the zoning and so forth. It's commercial.
I have an issue with that too. I mean, he could have chose to make it just a kitchen, to like a ghost kitchen type thing to feed the trucks, and that would have been perfectly fine and still been within his business expertise. So.
But within the zone, the business he is.
Right, he's allowed to,
Is
he's
allowed.
allowed to establish a restaurant.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have enough room for the parking spaces that we as an organization are saying he needs. And now we're granting him a variance, or we're discussing granting him a variance. And is that the right thing? And are other people going to ask for the same type of variance? Yes, I think the answer to that is yes.
How many parking spots were required when it was vans?
Well, it's in the document. Occupancy
It
was.
would have been one for every 350 square feet of floor area,
Yeah.
so that would have come out to, I believe, 6 spaces.
Right. Because it was a mercantile business.
And that's based on our current ordinance as opposed to the ordinance that was in effect at the time that Vance was there
Yeah.
Right.
or approved.
Jennifer, anything on that one?
Yeah, that's the one I have a little problem with.
Okay. Standard G, strict compliance with area setbacks, frontage, height, bulk, and density requirements would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or would render conformity unnecessarily burdensome. The applicant cannot operate a food and drink establishment, which is a permitted use at 807 Napier Avenue due to the minimum parking requirements. Conformity would be burdensome to the applicant as they would be relying on other property owners to agree to a shared parking agreement or be forced to acquire additional land, which is also contingent on the willingness of other property owners. Partial demolition of the building would also be further burdensome.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Clearly.
Standard H, the variance requested is the minimum change necessary to mitigate the hardship. The applicant has maximized the space available on their site for parking and is requesting the minimum relief to allow themselves to operate the food and drink establishment.
Agreed.
And the last one, the variance will, standard I, the variance will relate only to the property that is subject to the application, and that's true, just true.
Agreed.
All right, we have reviewed the findings. Would someone like to make a motion based on those findings? Is there any further discussion of the findings? Let's start there.
Well, we would have to make a motion with the contingencies built into it. So
Correct.
we need to arrive at those, I think, before someone can make a motion.
Have you collated, the discussion into some kind of proposed contingencies?
language.
Yeah, a coherent.
Well, let's start with the first proposed contingency of limiting the restaurant to 18 seats. How do we feel about that?
Doesn't buy us anything legally, does it? Or doesn't buy us, I mean,
Let's hear from the applicant.
My question is limited to 18 persons in dining or just 18 seats in general?
Where you're gonna have them stand.
I thought that we were saying, my understanding was there was 24 and then there were the staff members and that left 18 who would be potential customers, isn't that?
But yeah,
Right? We had that discussion about how many staff.
right, but the document that we have, the packet that we have says 5 in the kitchen and
Oh.
18 dining.
Mhm.
So that's what,
Right.
to your question,
And
it is a question, like how many?
Yeah, so in terms of the requirements, there's a couple things happening here. So there's the occupancy requirements.
Right.
Okay.
On the building department end of things. So the kitchen area requires 200, one person per every 200 square feet. And then the business area is 150, one per 150 square feet. So the way that math came out was the 23, so 5 in the kitchen and then 18 in the dine-in area. The plans provided 18 seats in the design area. The applicant has brought up that they would prefer more seating to be allowed. So with those considerations in mind, you may tune that 18 number up or down as you find appropriate.
Does it change the parking requirements?
It would not alter
No.
the parking requirements. This is,
Not at all.
that is unrelated, though is an important point of consideration as the variance will run with the land. There may be a future tenant that seeks to alter the floor plan in the future. The current tenant may wish to alter the floor plan. And these are future considerations that you may have concern over, is what that is in relation to largely.
So when you put the condition in for 18, did that include staff?
So
The way the
18
no.
was based on the seating.
Correct.
Nine
For-
seats
for
plus
customers.
18 plus employees.
Correct.
And there would be employees, yeah, okay.
And to be clear,
gonna-
the occupancy loading based on the building code is for things like the width of the egress and things associated with the building. Really has nothing to do with the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
we're not gonna be on the wrong side of any of those ordinances with 18, right? Or with 24?
Side of the Michigan Building Code,
Right.
correct. He's gonna have to meet the Michigan Building
Yeah.
Code, so that's a separate issue.
I guess it's just, up to our judgment, based on some.
Did I,
History.
did I hear correctly? Occupancy is capped at 23?
So that was not an exact measurement necessarily.
Yeah.
The applicant's plans did not have the exact measurements of the kitchen and the business area.
Okay.
It was an approximation. The 18 number is in part coming from the plans provided by the applicant, which showed 18 seats provided.
Okay, yeah, because I think, I think there's maybe a little confusion on the separation between seats and legal occupancy. So I mean, we can say 18 seats, but that doesn't really impact occupancy. So where is that number, I guess? Is it 23?
Yeah, I mean, you would expect generally with this type of use that the seats would be the slower turnover parking spaces. So if any individuals were to come in to be patrons of the establishment and they were to dine in at one of the seats, you would expect them to be there longer than someone who would be standing, probably waiting for their order to be prepared to leave. So the 18 is in regard, it would largely affect the turnover of the parking spaces, which is the intent of that condition.
Right, right. And so if the occupancy though is 23,
Mhm.
then we're really never going to have an issue with the 18 seats.
Yes, but you could theoretically rework the floor plan because the
Yeah.
kitchen requires
The
200 square
additional,
feet. So
okay.
if you were to
yeah.
rework
So-
the floor plan, you could increase
Yeah.
the occupancy.
So what would be the
So-
maximum?
Right.
Let's say it was all based on customers. What would
Right.
be the maximum number of people that would be able to be in there occupancy wise?
According to
If
the
kitchen
Michigan,
wasn't,
right,
yeah,
according to the
kitchen wasn't
Michigan
part of it.
Building Code,
Yeah.
what would be the maximum amount of people?
For that
on-
square footage.
2,100.
Cause we're bad at math.
Can I just explain something a little
Mhm.
bit? Okay, so there are two different things here. When we get a plan for building, the designer can always decide how many people they want in their dining. Okay, so that he designed a dining room with 18 people. Okay, is everybody clear on that? So he got to decide that number. If he wouldn't have put seating in the dining room and just left a big blank open space, then the code says we have to figure it out.
So what would that be?
Well, that would be based on tables and chairs, it could be so much as 15 square feet per person. Okay, so it could be different.
Really?
He's asked for the 8.
Okay, so you're saying it could be denser,
It could be. He could have drawn it.
even though the kitchen is limited to 5 because it's 200 square feet.
And then to further,
But the dining could be, you could herd people in there like cattle.
Well, you could have them sitting at a bar.
Yeah,
Building code occupancy is totally dependent on what occupancy, he's a business, so that's 150 square feet. If he doesn't submit plans, we go based off of 150. But future use could be, industrial or laboratory, anything, we have different square footage numbers for any type of.
so the 150, just because I can't comprehend all
Yeah,
this.
that's all
100
relevant. What
Right.
he presented was for his plan.
Right, but 150, if it is, building code is 150, within 1,000, let's say
It's
half.
not applicable
doesn't
here,
matter.
so let's not.
Oh, it isn't at all.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He submits plans with no seating in it, then we have to.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
That helps. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
I have a question. The building code for occupancy and the fire code, is that the same?
Very much so,
Okay,
because exiting and different things are determined by that.
okay.
But when we get a plan and it has been presented to us, that's what we go on.
Okay.
So we could, agree on 18.
That is what's
I mean,
proposed.
that's a
by
guess.
the
Yeah,
applicant.
it's,
But
it's,
isn't that, is that then
That's not
included?
proposed by the applicant.
Right.
Right.
That is proposed by staff.
True.
Okay, I thought it was part of the applicant's design.
It wasn't, we didn't know about the 24 bill tonight.
Okay.
So I presented somebody else's, this is an example of what was added. Obviously, I didn't want to incur the cost of having a design for the business if I wasn't gonna be granted the variance, like unnecessary cost, so I just kind of presented with the fee where I already kind of proposed to the city, because they ran into the same roadblock, they just didn't follow through with that requesting variance.
so what we're really what we're really talking about is, as your, packet page 28, describes, approximately 23 of occupancy load. We can just say occupancy load. And let him divvy up however he sees fit.
Yeah, now remember that the Dolphins' point is that you place a condition on so that in case Pedro goes bye-bye and a new
Right.
restaurant comes in, that it's not going to be overloaded.
Right.
So that was the purpose of it. And where he got it from, you know, he certainly he can ask for 24, he could ask for 8,
Right.
Or no condition at all.
or none at all.
Right.
Because right now it's a guess. You know, on all our parts, you know,
So Sean, I would love
I
to
got
hear what
another
you're,
question.
what
There's
you're
no-
thinking
there's
in
no,
terms of
um,
language.
Outdoor seating contemplated. Okay, so only indoor seating. Okay.
I'm okay with the occupancy being 18, I just like a few more seats just to be able to accommodate 18 people. If somebody's taking up 4 of the 18 seats. That's the point I'm trying to, I think it was 24 seats. Because theoretically, 24 people could take up all this, but then
And during COVID, we all experienced social distancing.
Yeah.
So do we think we want to put a condition on the number of seats? If so, what number are we thinking?
Without being arbitrary, it does seem like it would help reduce the traffic issues that were.
Yeah.
They said that half the required spaces.
yeah, it's just,
It seems like we're gonna have this problem again. Potentially.
I can certainly see that angle.
yeah. And on the other side of the coin is, we're supposed to be administrators, administrating ordinances. And I was trying to find some rationale for justifying a quantity. But if it's a guess, I don't, you know.
Well, the best rationale I can come up with is that the applicant has said 24 would be sufficient.
And that might to run the business.
So I'm personally comfortable with 24.
24 chairs.
Or 24
Seats.
occupancy.
Yeah, seats.
Right,
24 seats means dine-in.
right.
Means 24 seats.
Not including staff. Okay. All right. Okay.
So then we can jump to if we want to impose a second condition of the property barrier.
Yes, as I understand, based on board's discussion, the condition would be similar to the property owner shall erect and maintain a durable barrier between their property and the abutting property in 2415 Niles Avenue along the west property line,
From the rear building back.
from the rear of the building to the north property line.
Okay.
What described the height? Did we say
It
continuous?
just,
Yeah, and then to clarify, the purpose of that is to prevent pedestrian and vehicle traffic from passing through the two sites.
Sounds vague enough to me.
Yeah, sorry, can you read that one more time?
The property owner shall erect and maintain a durable barrier between their property and the abutting property at 2415 Niles Avenue along the west property line, to prevent, to the north property line, to prevent vehicular and pedestrian traffic from crossing between the two sites.
Okay,
It's pretty good on the fly.
yeah, that's it.
Covers it.
Okay.
So, but then
I
we
would-
don't, then to Sean's point, we're not designing it, but to prevent pedestrians and vehicles.
Mhm.
You know, so if
What are the
you're a
requirements?
hurdler, you're not, still not gonna get over it.
Correct. This motion
Sounds
would
good.
theoretically not restrict necessarily the design requirements, though would apply a reasonable estimation of what the barrier would entail.
Functional requirement.
Did you put continuous in there? Or
Uh,
do we need that in there?
I said shall erect and maintain, so
I think that's
maintain would
superfluous.
imply.
Okay.
I think if you're preventing vehicle and pedestrian
Mhm.
traffic, that's
Right.
implied in maybe a.
Well, we can make
About
that
dogs?
continuous part of that building already, barrier,
Correct.
so it'd just be two barriers, one in the back and one in the front.
Just in the back.
Just in the back,
Well,
But we bump into other issues if we try to put a barrier in the front.
To the sidewalk.
there might be a gap between the property and the side, of the end of the property line, like when the sidewalk starts. It might be just a small gap.
You're only going north.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
He's trying to be,
extra.
oh, yeah,
I put a
So-
plan there too, just to even discourage
But-
people
but-
seeing it.
yeah.
was there a third condition then, Sean?
What's your pleasure?
Well, the signage.
Yes,
So we
the other
discussed
possibility
signage
was
for
signage.
that specific area.
So as I understand, the intent was a sign shall be placed on the southern portion of the west side of the building to indicate that parking on the property located at 2415 Niles Avenue for the patronage of the business at 807 Napier is not permitted.
Well, that's
It's a
wordy.
little little specific too, but
No, but that's what you said, right?
Mhm.
On the bill? That,
That was my understanding of the board's intent.
yeah.
sounds like just one sign in one location. And I know the applicant can't put signage on the neighbor's property, but again, it's kind of like the fence. I think if we make it too specific, we're not allowing the creativity of a, well-intentioned
Yeah.
business owner.
Like what you're thinking?
I
So,
apologize.
so do you want to
Can
read
we
that
make-
for Kirk one more time? He wants the wordsmith it.
Can we make it a little less specific? It sounds like we're requiring only one sign in a very specific location, and can we broaden it to make it such that the applicant is required to post adequate signage?
Yeah. With the purpose of.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Now
So
we're
something
talking.
along the lines of adequate signage shall be provided to indicate that parking on the abutting property
It's not
Is not
permitted.
permitted.
is not permitted.
There you go.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not a sandwich sign sitting on the sidewalk that blows away.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
You can
my,
say
my
permanent.
thought was the applicant shall apply signage to the west wall of the existing building
With the purpose of.
with the
Yeah,
there, now
yeah,
you're
there we
talking.
go.
You could
That's-
possibly say permanent
Permanent,
signage, because
yeah.
permanent would imply not a sandwich board or
yeah.
another temporary banner or other form of sign.
Wow. Now we're
I'm
getting there.
just, without being right there on the property, I don't know if that, like, that's fine. I'll leave it
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, you are just out of school. I like it.
Any other thoughts? Someone like to make a motion?
So if I were to make the motion, can I say, subject to the following conditions and defer to you to read them?
You could possibly say, subject to the conditions as discussed by the commission and clarified by staff.
Okay,
And that would apply as,
related to,
as the discussion
yeah,
we've had
okay.
as part of the permanent record and it's available.
Gotcha. All right. So the zoning board of, I move that the zoning board of appeals approve Pedro Villasorno's dimensional variance. Sorry if I butchered your name. Request to reduce the required minimum parking spaces for a food and drink establishment from 21 to 11 at the property located at 807 Napier Avenue, as the application has satisfied all the standards set forth under Article 15, Section 15.4.10 of the City of St. Joseph zoning ordinance. This approval is subject to the following conditions as discussed by the board regarding the number of seats, the application of signage, and the installation of a barrier.
We have a motion. Do we have support for the motion?
I support.
I don't believe you're a voting member today.
Yes.
Is
No,
it?
I'm the non-voting member.
All
You
right,
do
you're
vote.
in. Okay. All right, we have a motion and support. Is there further discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Chair Eber,
Yes.
member Healy,
No.
member Hubble,
Yes.
member Butcher,
Yes.
member Sooth is not present, member Minor may not vote, member Fiesbeck.
Yes.
All right. Good luck. Please communicate with your neighbors. All right, our next order of business. We aren't done yet. We need to elect a vice chair. We've been without a vice chair for a number of meetings now, and the time has come to elect a vice chair. We can do this any number of ways. How would you like to proceed?
Didn't we have a
Well, you're-
nomination?
I recommend.
I thought we had a nomination
recommend
last time,
Craig.
didn't we?
I did. Last time.
I'll second that.
My wife,
Yeah, we almost hung it with you last time.
Yeah, did you?
That's what I thought.
I
Don't we
read that
carry
in the
that over?
minutes.
I'm autistic, so you don't want me to do it.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay, that'd be great. You're a little more structured than I am.
So was that a motion?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't make motions.
Oh, yeah.
You can.
Easy.
Yes, I motion Craig Hubble as the next vice chair.
Approved. Or
Support?
Support.
Support.
We have a motion. We have support. Further discussion on the motion? You're willing to accept?
I am.
That's a roll call vote, I assume.
I would recommend a roll call vote. Yes.
Please proceed.
Chair Eber,
Yes.
member Healy,
Yes.
member Hubble,
I will abstain.
member Butcher,
Yes.
member Sooth is absent, member Minor may not vote, member Fiesbeck.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm gonna miss the next 6 meetings.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That's it.
I put my agenda away. I don't think we have anything else. Old business,
Audience comments.
Not much
audience
public
comments. Staff comments.
No further comments.
I do like the conditions, I have to say.
Yes, that's very nice. We haven't had that in the past.
Yes.
Hugely.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you put it in the document because I was questioning that the whole time until I came upon that paragraph.
I try to provide as much information as I can, and if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to clarify as much as I can.
I would say too, or something like that would be completely correct, but that's something we could actually take care of. The agenda with that, if you get a hold of.
Sure.
And anything else don't like about our staff, that's.
Who are those people?
All right. I have one comment about the new format, which is, it's all new to me, but I know that when we're proposing things, we're kind of proposing them in the affirmative. And we read the staff analysis in favor, but we didn't go through the staff analysis in opposition. And I don't know if going forward, if like we're making a prejudgment on that we're kind of leaning forward and we're only going to read the in favor, or if we need to do our due diligence and read them both, or
Yeah, that.
read neither.
And
or-
we got into that predicament the last time, and
Yeah,
that
where
I
it
fe-
became confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when
That would-
Chris
that would be
says
helpful.
no,
It will extend the meeting, but
Yeah, it'll extend the meeting, but it is uncomfortable because I said no the last time as well. And so it's just a little bit disconcerting when you think you're supposed to have a group thing, but you don't necessarily, you may have a majority, but you don't have a group think.
Yeah, I suppose my intent with the formatting was more so to provide discussion points as opposed to necessarily reading through.
Verbatim.
Right.
Reading
Yeah.
through them, so it was more so to fuel your discussion as you
Right.
go through the.
Like
findings.
thought
Let me-
starters type
If you
thing.
don't agree with the statements that were in support, there were alternatives that were not, and that's okay, that's the point of going through the standards, I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah.
read them and discuss things that you don't agree with. And I think, John, you didn't agree with some of those who voted no, which made absolute sense.
Chris, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's, I was very happy that you were trying to find a way for this gentleman to get his business up and running and be in compliance with all the rules and regulations. But to be honest with you, it was a bridge too far for me, going from the 10 spaces that were there to he should have had 21. And I drive by that corner all the time. And I think the turnover that he anticipated with this parking spaces turning over because people were coming there for just to pick up their food. I just think that it was going to be a quagmire. And
And that's why discussion support though. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
we
yeah.
may not all agree
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the same thing.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure,
But
sure.
it could be- But, it could be a split, 2-3 vote, but.
I mean, under
But-
normal circumstances, I was in full compliance with like
Right.
what you guys were trying to do in terms of I wrote down the opposition text from the letter, just bullet pointed it. And you've addressed all of them. Okay. So you did a nice thing for the guy that owns the jewelry store, right? You addressed all of his concerns. But for me, my concerns were more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's always
And-
fine to disagree.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
But
right.
you certainly wouldn't have
It'd be just you.
volunteered, you wouldn't have volunteered to read the findings. And that's why sometimes it's hard for me to, if I see it going one way,
Right.
Well,
I would never want to read the findings if I think I oppose the majority.
I feel
well,
the
let me
same way.
ask a more pointed question about just the process, since we have pros and cons, which are great. Or should we even have them in should we be reading them for the public discussion, or is that just for our, background? And is that something like, do we need to?
Yeah, I think we do because it's on the application and they have to fill it out. So they're hearing the same standards that they just filled out with their responses, but they need.
Then I think
they
we
need
should
to
read the
hear
pros
ours.
and cons, I guess, would be my follow-up to that. I don't disagree with you. I just think from a
I think as
A
we
to B to
get,
C, we
as we
read them
get
both.
more comfortable with the process.
Yeah.
Being able to look at the material that Dalton's provided and put that in your own words. If you agree with whether it's a pro thing or a con thing, you don't have to read his verbatim, but it's the intent behind what he's
Right.
saying. Put that in your own words, and how do you feel about that?
Right.
That's fair.
Is available online too for the public, so they can see the pros and cons
Okay.
listed online.
Good to know.
I will say that if there's an issue that comes up that I think I need to make you aware of, that is something that's confidential, I may send out, it very rarely happens with this board, but I will notify the commission in confidential communications, the board. And you would get that under a confidential memo. That's not part of the packet. The standards are, again, are more, this is, information and thoughts and things for you to think about. But if there are things that are confidential, those would be communicated separately from the agenda packet.
Excellent. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have support.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Anybody ever oppose that?
They better not.
They ever go, no, I oppose.
Not with Jerry.
On that point, we're always unanimous.
Maybe with the vice chair they might, but.
Maybe.